Many cars have been described or compared to pieces of art, but only one car can actually be considered a legitimate piece of art under law. The Ferrari 250. Enzo Ferrari only made Ferrari so he could finance his racing team, and apart from Formula 1, which he is most known for, he was also involved in FIA sports car class racing. Now, in order to compete in that, you have to have a sports car. So, in 1952, they launched the 250S. This is the first use of the 250 moniker in Ferrari history. It was based on the 225S road racer. In fact, it shared both the same wheelbase and the same tube chassis. However, had one big difference. A 3-liter Colombo V12, making 227 horsepower in a 1,900-pound car. It was ridiculously fast. That sounds terrifying in 1952, but it worked. It won its Mills Miglia that year, and it set the fastest lap at Le Mans before breaking down. In fact, this is quite possibly the rarest Ferrari 250 ever made, and that's saying something because we're going to get into some pretty damn rare cars after this, because there is one in the world. There is only one ever made. Because shortly after the 250S, which is sort of like a proof of concept almost, they made the 250MM. Why the MM? Simple, because Mills Miglia. Basically, it was just more tinkering and perfection on the S model, which meant it had different carburetors for an extra 10 horsepower, new gearbox, and other parts of that were more or less the same after those key differences. A bigger difference than the gearbox and the carburetors, though, was the production. 31 of them were made, so way many more. 31 times as many, in fact, for all you people who know mathematics out there. These 31 MMs were sent all around the world, including to the US, where Phil Hill raced them in SCCA competition. These things were so good, they remained competitive for 9 years. So where do you go from there? The 250 Monza in 1954. Guess where they got that name from? No clue. This was when Ferrari began implementing F1 technology into their sports cars. So it was a lot more F1 underneath than sports car, and it had an all-aluminum Pininfarina body on it to save weight. But despite the 247 horsepower and the aluminum body and the F1 tech, it wasn't really that good. It only won one major race of the 12 Hours of Hears in 1954. However, the car that came after it was a lot better. The 250 Testarossa, you ever heard of it? It's fantastic looking. They basically kept the body more or less similar, but, a bit of tweaking here and there to get more aerodynamic and a bit lighter. They continued to use the 3-liter V12, the combo from earlier, but now it made 300 horsepower, and thanks to that ridiculously streamlined open top body, it had a top speed of 161 miles an hour in 1957. This remains one of Ferrari's most successful road racers of all time, winning 10 international endurance races and 3 world sports car titles in 1958, 1960, and 1961. In fact, a hard-top version of the car called the 330 TRILM, yes, they decided that was a good name for a car, became the last front-engine vehicle to ever win Le Mans in 1962. This is also the start of some rather expensive cars going for sale. You know, people complain about spending $3 million on a new Koenigsegg or a new Ferrari. Well, What about 39.8 million? Does that sound a bit expensive to you? Because it's pretty cheap in comparison. Yeah, nearly $40 million for a 250 was sold at private auction. That's a lot. So, with a dominant sports car under their belts, Ferrari decided to branch out from sports car racing to prototype racing with the 250. More specifically, the 250P for prototype, I would assume. It was the first ever mid-engined 250, and in its first and only season of competition in 1963, it won the 1,000 kilometers of Nürburgring, the 12 hours of Sebring, and the 24 hours of Daytona. That's a pretty successful year. And they refined the P with the LM. I'll be honest, I've never actually liked the look of this car, but a lot of people love it, so make it what you will, never been my personal favorite. However, this one was very notable for having a roof, which not only strengthened up the chassis, which when combined with the tubular space frame chassis, and the 4-wheel disc brakes, and the 5-speed manual transmission, and the independent double wishbone suspension, meant that it was pretty fast. It scored a 1-2-3 in the 1965 24 Hours of Le Mans. And, by the way, that was the last overall win Ferrari would ever have at Le Mans because of a certain, GT40? I know right now you guys are typing on your little keyboards about the elephant in the room. Where's the GTO? Where's the GTO? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Well, we'll get to the GTO, damn it, alright? It's 1962. Ferrari wants to enter Group 3 GT racing. And they have a problem. Their lead engineer, got fired by Enzo Ferrari for reasons unknown to science. And Scaglietti had to finish his design. However, that design was pretty damn good. It looks simply stunning, and if you look closely at every 250, because you see those on every corner GTOs, if you look at them, each one of them is slightly different. Some of them, the door on the left is longer than the door on the right. Some of them have different vent configurations, different headlights. That is because each car was hand-beat out of aluminum on a wooden skeleton. And the same thing goes for the engine. Each 3-liter V12 was handmade, so no two deliver the exact same amount of power. Some make less, some make more, with an average figure about 296 horsepower. Despite the handmade varied bodywork and the handmade varied engine performance, the thing could still do 175 miles an hour top speed. That is absurd and terrifying for 1962. In order to save weight, the body was aluminum. The interior was stripped out of absolutely everything, including the speedometer, because no one needs to know how fast you're going as long as you're in the lead. These incredibly rare, unique vehicles, literally each one is different than the other, still does not hold a candle to arguably the ultimate 250 in terms of rarity and legacy. The bread van. It was made by a privateer who bought a 250 GTO. He experimented with some radical aerodynamics, threw out an extra 200 pounds from the already lightweight GTO, and was winning Le Mans. Privateer, winning Le Mans over the Ferrari factory team in 1962 before its driveshaft gave out in a DNF. It is one of the rarest, most exclusive Ferraris of all time, and I should mention, by the way, at the 2015 Goodwood Revival, they crashed it. The bread van, they crashed it. That must have been one hell of an insurance claim. But even without the bread van, the 250 GTO had was immensely successful for the 3 seasons it competed in, but arguably it was even more successful once it was done. What do I mean by that? Well, first, the Italian high courts actually decided that the 250 GTO was labeled a piece of art and could not be replicated under Italian law. And if that was not enough legacy and, honoring what an incredible vehicle this is, in 2018, at one sold privately for $70 million. That is absurd. It is the most valuable car of all time and the most expensive vehicle ever sold at auction. Yeah. Now I should mention, Ferrari only makes racing cars for road use. However, even the great Enzo was defeated by rules which mandated you had to build a few road cars. So, in 1953 he launched the 250 Europa at the Paris Motor Show. It is the only 250 road car ever to not run with the Combo V12, instead running with the Lampredi V12, making 200 horsepower in a road car, which amusingly was not a track-ready car like you would expect. No, it's a GT car, luxury GT cruising car. Oh, and only 22 of them were made? Don't worry, all you Combo V12 enthusiasts, because the GT brought that engine back in 1955, and the GT really cemented Ferrari's commitment, sort of, to customers, as in road customers, because they had to expand their factory and put bigger emphasis on road car features when the GT came out. It was their most popular road car ever at that point. Now I say they improved their product standards. Apparently not good enough, because Ferruccio Lamborghini owned several 250 GTs and hated every single one of them so much, and hated their customer support so much, that he founded Lamborghini, the rival Italian supercar manufacturer to Ferrari that stands to this day. Think of every customer service phone call you've had to make, and how much you've hated them. Now consider getting so mad at a customer service report that you found a rival company to defeat them and show them who's boss. That is how frustrated Ferruccio Lamborghini was with the 250 and Ferrari. So, getting back on track, the GT not only spawned Lamborghini, they also had many special editions like the Tour de France, the Cabriolet, the Berlinetta Lusso, and short wheelbase and long wheelbase versions of each one of those cars. Each one of those was sold in very limited quantities and are worth many millions of dollars these days. But out of all the cars that I mentioned, road cars anyway, probably the most famous and recognizable of all of them was the 1962 Ferrari 250 California. This convertible sports car was launched in 1957 with a short wheelbase version that was even lighter, and a long wheelbase version that was better handling. So, take your pick, I guess. And this is, still a GT car, comfortable suspension, here and there, no cruise down the south of France, and yet it still had a monstrous V12 making 276 horsepower, did 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds in 1957, and had a top speed of 145 miles an hour. No wonder it sold for $17.2 million at auction in 2016. And most notably of all, more so than the auction price of the fantastic performance or the comfort of the luxury cruiser, it was in Ferris Bueller as the hero car, which, by the way, when the movie was made, the car was valued at $300 grand. Talk about inflation of prices. $300 grand 1986, $17 million in 2016. Oh, and they drove it off a building. Because replica, thankfully. Unfortunately for the 250, it was discontinued after 8 years in production and replaced with the 275 and 330 models, which are I wouldn't exactly call them great or legendary or, as anywhere near as special as the 250s, heck no. But they did sell for $25 million in 2013, so I guess that's something.